Soldier Zero Anby is the most complex character in the game. Not Haramasa, Billy, Evelyn, or any other character in the game comes close. I've seen plenty of people online a bit disappointed in Soldier Zero Anby's performance, or maybe its withdrawal from Miyabi, but the truth is that SAnby is already strong and only stands to get stronger in the future. But if she doesn't feel that way, it's because she's more different, and in my opinion, complex than any other character in the game so far. In this video, I'll explain why I think she's the most complex character in the game, how to utilize her properly, and then I'll give some examples of Miyabi level performance with the Shield defense and Deadliest Assault example with M0W0 Anby. To explain why, I first have to talk about her kit. Her kit itself is actually quite simple, and there really aren't any catches. The goal of her kit is to fill up this star and tap the skill 3 times. When you use all 3 skills in quick succession, you will also get the white thunder damage, so you're incentivized to fill up the star before using the skill. That's the majority of her damage. Everything else in her kit works to fill up this bar. Her skill and ultimate fill up the star completely, so after using those you can follow up with triple skill. Her full basic attack string will fill up the bar halfway, and so will her dodge counter, so putting 2 of those together will also fill up the star. Her chain attack and parry will fill up a bit less than 25% of the bar, and finally her quick assist will follow up with a B2 and essentially substitutes for B1. It fills up more than a B1, but not by much. None of that sounds particularly hard. So does she have a hard stun combo like Harumasa? Well, not really. I posted a video showing off different combos, but I'll be the first to admit that there's nothing too special going on during these combos. You can check out the video in the description. The problem is that using 2 basic attack strings takes a really long time, especially during a stun window, so your only real way of getting more stars is exclusively through your skills and ults. After using those, in most cases, you really don't have anything else to do other than use basic attack, so you're also rarely ever going to get another triple star combo. Despite the simplicity of stun windows, there's still a little bit you can do to optimize the stun window. First off, you want to prepare a full star before the stun window, if it's possible. However, you only really need 75% since your chain attack can handle the rest. Speaking of chain attacks, they are the next best thing you can do after triple skills. So, you can double chain attack with her. It's just a bit more damage, and you get more decibels for Anby at the cost of fewer decibels for her teammates and not benefiting from chain attack buffs, so that's just a trade-off you have to make. You might have noticed that those first 2 tricks contradict each other just a little bit. I'm telling you to max out the star before stun, but the chain attacks also generate a bit of the star, so you lose a little bit of star generation. To remedy this, we can use manual chain attacks. Manual chain attacks do exactly what it says when you enable them, and since we'll be using skill, we'll be holding down basic attack to prevent the stun. Hold down the basic attack during the skill animation and it won't trigger chain attack. This lets you benefit from the stun multiplier while also letting the chain attacks fill up the star just a little bit. You do have to be careful if you want to use another X special after triple skill, because if you keep holding basic attack, you will start doing your basic attack string after the X special, which is a big no-no. So you could just not bother doing this, but the way to prevent the basic attack string is to release holding the basic attack button and hold skill while you're doing the X special, and then go back to holding basic attack during the next triple skill. Her manual chain attack is a bit harder than most other characters, but it's nothing that special and it's nothing a little bit of trial and error can't fix. But there's one more problem, which is that if you want to do the full star, it's almost impossible to fill it up using chain attacks. So if you have your skill or ult available, you'd rather just use those. But it's still worthwhile doing this. The White Thunder multiplier actually isn't that high. It's pretty close to this multiplier of the skill, so by doing a full 3 skills, we're essentially getting the damage of a 4th. So outside of a stun window, the reward for doing all 3 is basically a 33% damage boost to the skills. During a stun window, however, the damage multiplier is usually 150%, so using an isolated skill is still worthwhile. You can also squeeze in 2 more skill usages with the double chain. 3 more basic attacks will let you use 2 skills. Okay, it's worth doing, but it's also a bit more effort than it's worth, so if you just don't want to bother and waste the star generation from your chain attack, you aren't losing that much damage. That was a whole lot of yapping for a stun window, but that still doesn't sound like she's the hardest character like I claimed. After all, Haramasa has a near frame perfect animation cancel you need to do for an optimal combo, and Evelyn has some pretty tight timings. So what makes her more difficult than those 2, or any other character in the game? Well, now I have to talk about the non-stun part. You're pretty much only going to use basic attacks, and there are a couple of little tricks you can do with them. I don't find these that particularly useful, and I'll explain why in a bit, but the video wouldn't be complete if I didn't mention them. The most notable tip is that after B3, where she goes backwards, if you don't press basic attack, she'll connect with the enemy, and this itself does build some of the star. The other basic attack thing you need to know is that after a dodge counter, she'll follow up with B2, and the reason that this is notable is that if you dodge counter and do a normal basic attack string starting from the B2, you actually don't get 100% of the star. you need just a little bit more. So while you could just do the B3 trick I talked about to get the 100%, you could also just B1, and I personally haven't found much of a difference. I already talked about this already, but holding down basic attack after X special will cause her to go into B2, and you don't want to do this because you're wasting a lot of star generation. Even that doesn't sound that difficult, so why did I put that as the title? Well, it's simple. Anby loves her dodge counters, more so than any other character in the game. Jane though might come close, but she can replenish her passion state fast enough for it to not be the biggest deal in the world. Okay, dodge counters aren't that difficult, but there's still a few reasons why Anby is different. First off, if you've played her, you've probably felt that her dodge counters are a bit wonky. That's because you can't dodge counter during her B4 or B5, and her B3 shifts her hitbox. This part just takes some getting used to, and I'm just mentioning it so you know that it's not an uncommon problem. The basic attack string's damage isn't that remarkable, so when we really look at it, one dodge counter is doing almost the same amount of work as a full basic attack string. You don't want to not basic attack, but you also want to maximize the amount of dodge counters you get, and going too far in the basic attack string will prevent you from doing a dodge counter. And you can't dodge counter during the triple skill, or else you lose the White Thunder. And there are still skill usages and her ultimate to weave in. So with all of this in mind, how do you maximize the number of skill usages and dodge counters to maximize her DPS? Well, it depends. Yeah, that's it. There's no one way of maximizing her DPS because every enemy is different. Some enemies will only hit once at a time with very infrequent attacks, while others will be very aggressive with attack strings of 5 hits or more. Every situation will be different, but there are still a few tips I can give. First, you should at the very least know when the enemy's attack string will end. You absolutely want to dodge counter the last 2 hits because bosses generally give you time between attacks, and that's when you can get off the triple skill without losing efficiency. This is also when you want to use your skill. Her X special is an iframe, but you don't want to iframe, you want to dodge counter. If you iframe 2 attacks that you could have dodge countered instead, you've effectively wasted your X special. If you had dodge countered and used the skill later, that's another 3 slashes. Additionally, dodge counters generate more energy than normal, so that's another reason to prioritize using them. Also, knowing that one dodge counter is almost equivalent to an entire basic attack string, it is worth it to not basic attack so you can dodge counter. This nets you more skill usages and thus more damage. But on that note, if you're already on B4, you might as well finish with B5 since dodge counter or not, you'd still need more basics or another dodge counter to finish that full star. The last thing to consider is if you even need to stun the enemy. As I already went over, her stun windows are quite underwhelming, and if the enemy is stunned, you cannot dodge counter. When you're doing enough dodge counters, you can often find that you kill enemies before they're even stunned. If you're at a low investment level or playing Deadly Assault, obviously you're going to stun the enemy eventually. But there is an important thing to remember about stuns, which is that it doesn't matter if you get 1.5 stuns, 2.3 stuns, 0.8 stuns, etc. Maybe if the boss dies during a chain attack, you could have stunned it faster, but the point is, unless doing more days is actually getting you more stuns, it's actually in your best interest to stun the boss as slow as possible. There are a few implications to this. First off, there is a mechanic that I love doing, which is the DP assist, where you dodge counter and parry at the same time. Normally this is the kind of mechanic I would mention, but in Anby's case, most times you don't want to take that parry and instead dodge counter until the end. And speaking of parries, you generally just don't want to do them. They take quite a bit of time, and their primary purpose is generating decibels and building days. The former might be necessary sometimes, but as I just discussed, the latter isn't important. This actually goes 2 ways, because the alternative is parrying everything, dazing the enemy as fast as possible, and getting more stun windows while doing less damage in between. My general rule of thumb is that if that can net you another ultimate usage, it's probably better to do, but again, it depends on the fight. So Anby is the most difficult character to play because her optimal rotations entirely depend on what enemy she's fighting. If you want to optimize another character, you can learn to press buttons in a different order or timing, stun the enemy faster, save up more resources, and that will improve your damage. If you want to optimize Anby, you have to know the enemy's moveset and learn all the proper timings to dodge counter and do her damage, or parry if it's even worth doing that at all while figuring out how to use her teammates. I haven't talked about her teammates yet. Anby's teammates are just as important as her when it comes to playing her well, but because her best teammate in Trigger isn't out yet, I won't spend too much time talking about it. Lucy, Astra, and Caesar are pretty similar in that you just need their attack buff up as often as possible, but the one thing about Caesar is that, at least speaking from experience, she makes your brain go AFK so you forget to do dodge counters. So don't do that because I just spent the entire video talking about how important they are, but otherwise they don't really interact with Anby in any special way. Anby doesn't go well with most stunners because, like I just discussed, she wants the field time to do her dodge counters and skill usages. Stunners up to this point have been about setting up the stun combo to do as much damage as possible while it's stunned. Obviously, Hoyo is now adding some stunners that aren't about that, like Pulchara and Trigger. I'll talk about Trigger when she comes out, and right now there isn't really anything to talk about with Pulchara. Now she does want to parry to recharge her off-field attacks, and I'd honestly say that it's worthwhile doing them, especially since you can quick assist back to Anby, but like I said many times in this video, you should only do that after Anby has done as many dodge counters as possible and only parry at the last possible opportunity during an attack string. Ching-Yi is technically viable as a teammate, but only if you kill the boss in one rotation, which usually isn't happening without investment. That's because after the first stun, while she's hogging field time, Anby isn't regenerating energy or decibels, which she needs for her damage during stun windows. So by the time the second stun comes, she's entering the stun window basically naked, and you're questioning why you stunned the boss in the first place, so I don't really recommend Ching-Yi at all. Finally, there's the most interesting teammate, which is her former partner in the cutting hairs, Nicole. Nicole has always been an interesting support because her damage boost is undeniable, but the problem has always been uptime. Fortunately, Anby has obvious windows where she wants the debuff active, which is when she's doing the triple slashes. So this is pretty good for Anby. If Nicole is just using a basic attack, you've only got time for one triple slash. But if you use her skill or ultimate, Anby can fit in X special or ult usage and another triple slash. But if we want to do more, well, Nicole can even handle that. I haven't actually talked about this yet on the channel, but this tech has been known since 1.0, which is that if you spin Nicole around while using her skill, this lets her charge the skill for even longer, which in turn lets the field stay for longer. This lets you fit in a triple slash, ult, triple slash, and even another skill usage and triple slash. I hadn't done this until recently because I'm a mouse and keyboard player, and pressing E while spamming WASD actually isn't easy at all, so if you're also a mouse and keyboard player who wants to try this, I would recommend binding a mouse button to your skill. Nicole also has some interesting build choices. First off, if we're not going to stun the enemy, Swing Jazz loses value. In this case, Freedom Blues and the new set are actually viable replacements, but they aren't huge improvements. The other case is if the enemy is going to get stunned. If it's possible to get another stun window, Nicole can actually help with that. I've been using this setup on Nicole a lot lately in double support setups, and the tech is to use 2P Shock Scar Disco and Impact on this 6. You could argue that more energy regen means more skill usages, which means more days, but in practice I haven't found that to be the case. I found this really helpful when you either only need one stun to kill the enemy, or if this lets you squeeze out another stun window, such as these Deadly Assault runs. This isn't exclusive to just Anby, so if you want to try Impact Nicole with Miyabi, Evelyn, or Yanagi, or any other DPS, go ahead and it will probably work great. But if you're already running a stunner, you probably don't need Nicole to contribute that much towards dazing, so run your ER Disc 6 like normal. So, Anby is the most difficult character in the game. You might find other characters to have more complex stun combos, or other characters to have harder damage optimization, but there currently isn't a character in the game where the optimal rotation depends from enemy to enemy by this much. Sure, you can get by with just mashing basic attack and pressing her skill, but playing Anby to the top of her capabilities is incredibly fun and satisfying. If you would like to see her in action in Chu defense, I have a 60-second clear of the second half with M0W0 Anby that you can check out, link in the description, and if you'd like to see a Deadly Assault example, I'll show a 45k score on the current Bulldozer. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
Right on cue. Now you can. Down strategy. You won't back down. What you deserve. Now you can. Focus. Witness the magic of music. No point running. Right on cue. Keep focused. Now's our chance. Let our soul resonate. Engaging. Roger that. I'll save my sheep. Down strategy. Resolve. Now you can. What's this? It's time. Time to go yours. Off balance. Now you pay. Right back at ya. Right on cue. Time. Now you pay. What's this? Right back at ya! Engaging. You asked for it. I won't back down.